Guten Morgen, sehr geehrte Damen und sehr geehrte Herren. Als Vorsitzender des Aufsichtsrats der Uniper SE übernehme ich satzungsgemäß die Versammlungsleitung und eröffne hiermit pünktlich um 10 Uhr die diesjährige ordentliche Hauptversammlung unserer Gesellschaft. Im Namen des Aufsichtsrats und des Vorstands begrüße ich Sie, unsere Aktionärinnen und Aktionäre, die Aktionärsvertreterinnen und Vertreter, die Vertreterinnen und Vertreter der Medien sowie alle anderen Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer, die die heutige Hauptversammlung in Bild und Ton übers Internet verfolgen, sehr herzlich. Meine Damen und Herren,
Gentlemen, before I continue with my introductory remarks, let me briefly address the changes regarding the shareholder representatives on the Supervisory Board, and I would also like to introduce myself. In the course of Fortum's exit as shareholder of Uniper, the gentlemen Markus Rauer-Mohr, Dr. Bernhard Günther, and Esa Hyvärinen, as well as Ms. Nora Steiner-Forsberg, resigned from their position with effect from the 21st of December 2022. The Düsseldorf Local Court subsequently appointed Dr. Jutta Dönges, Dr. Markus Schenk, Professor Dr. Ines Zenke and myself, Thomas Blades, as new Supervisory Board members with effect from the 22nd of December 2022. In a constituting meeting on the 22nd of December 2022, the Supervisory Board elected me as chairman and Professor Dr. Ines Zenke as deputy chairperson of the Supervisory Board.
Dr. Jutta Dönges legte ihr Amt als Mitglied des Aufsichtsrats zum
Dr. Jutta Dönges resigned as a Supervisory Board member with effect from the 28th of February 2023 and was appointed to Uniper's Board of Management on the 1st of March 2023, where she is responsible for finance. On the 21st of March 2023, Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier was appointed as Supervisory Board member by the Düsseldorf Local Court. Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier, Dr. Markus Schenk, Professor Dr. Ines Zenke, and myself are up for election to the Supervisory Board today. I will address the personnel changes on both the Supervisory Board and the Board of Management of Uniper SE since the last AGM, later as part of the Supervisory Board's report. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly introduce myself. As already mentioned, I am Thomas Blades. I have a degree in electrical engineering, and my pet topic has always been and still is the energy industry. At the beginning of my career, around 45 years ago, one of the projects I was involved in was the Bierwang project at Ruhrgas. During my career as CEO at Siemens Energy Oil and Gas Division, member of the Board of Management at Linde AG, and most recently until 2021 as chairman of the Board of Management at Bilfinger SE, I've been responsible for turbine production and the operation and maintenance of power stations. In companies such as Schlumberger, Siemens Oil and Gas, Linde and Bilfinger, in the course of more than 40 years of working for these companies, I've been able to gain international management experience. I'm a British citizen. I was born in Hamburg, and I've lived and worked in Europe, North America, as well as the Far and Middle East. Today, my primary domicile is Munich, even though I spent a lot of time in Düsseldorf over the past few months to follow and support Uniper's development. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd be very happy to be able to continue to support your company together with the Uniper Board of Management and all Uniper colleagues, and to help make it profitable in the long term, and in doing so contribute my international experience in the energy sector. So I'd be honored if you placed your trust in me by electing me as a member of the Supervisory Board. Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier, Dr. Markus Schenk, and Professor Dr. Ines Zenke will introduce themselves later on.
Meine Damen, meine Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, you will have read in the invitation to this AGM that the Board of Management, with the approval of the Supervisory Board, has decided that according to Section 26N, paragraph 1 of the German Introductory Act to the Stock Corporation Act, the general meeting will be held as a virtual general meeting pursuant to Section 118A, paragraph 1, sentence 1 of the German Stock Corporation Act, that is, without the physical presence of shareholders or their proxies, with the exception of the company-appointed proxies. The physical presence of shareholders or their representatives, with the exception of the company-appointed proxies at the AGM venue, is excluded. Let me take the opportunity to briefly explain why the Board of Management and the Supervisory Board decided to use this new virtual format for this year's AGM. We believe it is worthwhile, in times of increasing digitization, to give this format a chance after it's been revised by the lawmaker compared with the so-called COVID-19 annual general meeting. It allows you, our shareholders, to participate and engage in an intensive and direct exchange between you and us. It also enables shareholders who would otherwise not have been able to attend the AGM due to a long journey or due to health reasons, to actively participate in the meeting. For this purpose, we published the speech by our Board of Management a couple of days before this AGM on the company's website. For next year's annual general meeting, the Board of Management will, when deciding on the AGM format, be it a face-to-face meeting, a virtual or perhaps a hybrid meeting, consider various aspects, including the exchange with shareholders, and then make a comprehensive assessment. In doing so, we will also take into account our experience with this year's virtual format and closely follow developments in the market during this year's AGM season. I would now like to welcome my fellow Supervisory Board members who are present here today. Jutta Dönges, the Deputy Chairman of the Supervisory Board from the employee representatives, is sitting right next to me on stage, from where you are sitting on your right. The other Supervisory Board members of Uniper SE are also present on site. Here you can see them in the live stream. If required, they may communicate with me even while I'm sitting here on the stage. I would also like to welcome the members of the Board of Management, our CFO, Dr. Jutta Dönges, on my right. In the context of the Board of Management's report, she will introduce herself. Then there's our Chief Operating Officer and Chief Sustainability Officer, Holger Kretz. To the left on the stage, he's also a new member of the Board of Management, and he's going to introduce himself to you now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, I also welcome you to Uniper's annual general meeting in 2023. I've been a new member of the Executive Board of Uniper since the 1st of March. As a Chief Operating Officer, I'm in charge of the operational business in the group. I'm very pleased that the Supervisory Board has tasked me to do so. As Mr. Blades announced, I'd like to introduce myself briefly. I am an engineer by profession, and I have been working with Uniper and its predecessor companies since 2001, mostly in the field of energy generation. Approximately 10 years ago, I was responsible for the market entry of E.ON in Turkey, and afterwards, for 3 years, I was the COO of Enerjisa, a joint venture of E.ON and the Turkish Sabancı Group. Since Uniper was founded in the year 2016, I have been in charge of the asset portfolio from conventional energy down to hydrogen as a COO for asset management. Lastly, I was responsible for the building of the first German LNG terminal in Wilhelmshaven, which was opened last December after only 10 months of construction on behalf of the federal government. I'm 52 years of age, I'm married, I live in Düsseldorf, I've got 2 grown-up daughters. I'm very pleased to be able to actively support the development of Uniper as a member of the Management Board and to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kreitz. I would now like to give the opportunity to our Chief Commercial Officer, Nick den Hollander, to briefly welcome you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Blades.
Thank you, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, I also extend a warm welcome to you to today's annual general meeting. Today, in my capacity as Chief Commercial Officer, I shall assist Mr. Blades and Ms. Dönges when it comes to questions on our commercial operations, and I'd like to wish you a pleasant course of this annual general meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. den Hollander. I'm particularly pleased to note the presence of Michael Lewis, who will take over as chairman of Uniper's Board of Management with effect from the 1st of June 2023. I'm very happy indeed that we've been able to win Mr. Lewis as new CEO of Uniper. Mr. Lewis will also introduce himself to you now.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Blades.
Thank you, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, I'm very pleased to be given the opportunity today, as early as today, to introduce myself to you personally. My name is Michael Lewis, and I will, as was said at the beginning by Mr. Blades, at the latest, on the 1st of July, or rather on the 1st of June, I shall assume the CEO position of Uniper. I'm an engineer, and I have almost 30 years of experience in the energy sector. My professional focus has from the beginning been on the field of renewable energies. In 1993, I joined the British energy company PowerGen as an environmental specialist. After PowerGen was acquired by E.ON in the year 2002, I joined the strategy department of the E.ON Group in Düsseldorf. Then in 2007, I assumed responsibility for developing the renewable energies department in the E.ON Group. Since 2017, I've been the CEO of E.ON UK, one of the leading power companies in the United Kingdom. I'm glad that I'm now changing over to Uniper, and I'm going back to Germany, where I actually lived previously for a period of more than 10 years. I'm married and I have 2 grown-up children, both of whom live near Birmingham. Shareholders, for the next years, it is important to rise to the challenges of a changing energy market against the backdrop of the climate crisis. I'm firmly convinced that Uniper is going to play a very big role in this field, and I'm very honored to be able to walk on this path together with you. I'm looking forward to this task that I'm going to rise to together with the whole Management Board team and the staff of Uniper, many of whom I know from my joint past with E.ON, and whom I value very much for their expertise and their commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. The Notary Public, Dr. Armin Hausschild, is also present. He is sitting on my left. He will keep the minutes of this AGM. And then we also have the designated proxies who've been nominated by the company. Already at this point, I would like to thank all those who have helped prepare and realize this AGM. Let me now move on to the formalities governing this meeting. Let me share with you a number of details on how this virtual meeting will be held. This year again, the proceedings of the whole AGM will be simultaneously translated from German into English. You may change your language settings on our website in the password-protected online service. Let me also point out that video or audio recordings or recordings of this video broadcast are not permitted. I note that the invitation to this AGM was published in due time and form in the Federal Gazette, dated the 13th of April 2023.
All
publications relating to the invitation, including the required documents such as the CVs of the candidates who we are proposing for election to the Supervisory Board in item 5, as well as the wording of the company's articles of association, including the proposed amendments in items 6 and 7, which are highlighted there, have been available on the company's website since the day the invitation was published, and they are also available for inspection today in this room. This has been verified by the notary public. So you've been informed about the invitation to the AGM, and I can also tell you that the company has not received any requests for additional agenda items, which is why we're only going to deal with the agenda as published in the Federal Gazette. In the run-up to the AGM, and in due time and form, the Association of Ethical Shareholders submitted counter-motions on agenda items 2 and 3. Additionally, Ms. Nina Palmer has submitted a counter-motion on agenda items 5 and 6, each in due time and form. All of the counter-motions I just mentioned were published on the company's website, and I will come back to this again at a later point in time. The company has not received any other counter-motions or election proposals. On Uniper's website, we've also provided you with information on data protection of Uniper's shareholder rights. The Notary Public, Dr. Hausschild, will file a copy of the invitation, including the agenda and the full wording of the proposed resolutions with the minutes of this AGM. Ladies and gentlemen, I note that the invitation to this AGM was published according to the relevant legal requirements and in line with the provisions of our Articles of Association. The list of participants is currently being prepared. The official meeting area comprises this meeting room from where we are broadcasting the proceedings of this AGM, and it also includes an adjacent room where some of the members of the Board of Management and the Supervisory Board members are staying. Any changes in attendance which occurred during the AGM will be recorded in the list of participants on an ongoing basis. Once the list has been prepared, I will give you the current attendance figures. If there are any changes in attendance during the meeting, I will give you the updated figures before I announce the voting results. Any comments from shareholders the company has received in due time and form were made accessible via the company's password-protected online service to all shareholders or their representatives registered for the annual general meeting. Shareholders, I would like to point out one more time that any motions, election proposals, questions and objections to resolutions passed at this AGM, which were submitted as part of the Commons, will not be considered during the AGM. I would also like to point out that only shareholders or shareholder representatives who are electronically connected to the AGM may exercise shareholder rights at this AGM. Shareholders, or if instructions have been issued to third parties other than the proxies of the company, these proxies are considered to be electronically connected to the virtual general shareholders meeting if they are properly registered for the AGM and have successfully logged in to the password-protected online service. Shareholders and shareholder representatives who are electronically connected to this AGM will be granted the right to speak by way of video communication. Ladies and gentlemen, I determine that the right for information and the right to ask follow-up questions according to Section 131, paragraph 1 of the German Stock Corporation Act may only be exercised by way of video communication. Shareholders or their representatives who wish to speak, submit motions, election proposals, or requests for information will require certain technical equipment to be able to take the floor. Either an internet-capable non-mobile device, such as a PC, a notebook, or laptop, or an internet-capable mobile device, such as a smartphone, will be required. To be able to take the floor, such devices must be equipped with both a camera and a microphone. It is not necessary to install software components or apps on your device. Please note, though, that you must ensure adequate image and sound transmission. So it's your responsibility to ensure adequate image and sound transmission, and you should also use a stable internet connection. You may only request the floor via the password-protected online service. For your contributions and questions, you are required to use the Request to Speak button, which you will find in the main menu in the online service. So this is the virtual Request to Speak desk, as it were. When you take the floor, you may also submit motions and election proposals. If you wish to submit a motion or election proposal outside of your regular contribution, you may use the motion or election proposal button. Other than that, the procedure is the same as when requesting the floor. During the AGM, I will divide speakers in groups, and when I call your name for the next upcoming block of speakers, a dialog window will open up in the online service where you will find the respective button. And if you click on the button, you will be able to proceed to the virtual waiting room. Now, in order to avoid delays, I would like to ask you to go to the virtual waiting room without any undue delay once the dialog window pops up. There, and once you've entered the virtual waiting room, our technical staff will welcome you. Before you can address the AGM, our technical staff will, together with you, check the image and sound transmission so that you may speak to the meeting with as little disruption as possible. Once this check has been successfully completed, I will ask you to go to the virtual stage so that your speech will be broadcast live to the AGM, and you can then deliver your speech. When you're done, the technical staff will see you off from the virtual waiting room. Please bear in mind that with a view to an orderly AGM process, I reserve the right to limit shareholders' rights to ask follow-up questions and to speak. Shareholders or shareholder representatives who have duly registered and are electronically connected to the AGM may, by way of electronic communication, use the company's password-protected online service and, in accordance with the procedure specified there, to declare objections to resolutions of the annual general meeting to the notary public, who is responsible for recording the minutes of the AGM, or to request that minutes be taken in accordance with Section 131, Paragraph 5 of the German Stock Corporation Act. Such notification is possible from the opening of the AGM until it is closed by the chairman. The list of participants includes the shareholders and shareholder representatives who are connected or represented at the meeting. The list of participants is updated continuously until the end of the AGM and can be inspected by shareholders or their representatives who are connected via the online service. In the run-up to the AGM, you've been able to submit comments on agenda items. Such comments are available for inspection by duly registered shareholders or their representatives via the online service. and these comments are also accessible there today. Please note that any questions, motions, election proposals or objections, including in the comments, will not be considered during the AGM. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to make a few remarks regarding the vote. Shareholders or their representatives who have duly registered for the AGM may only cast, amend or revoke postal votes and issue, amend or revoke proxies and instructions to the company's proxies up to a point in time that I will determine later on in the course of the vote. I will again announce that point in time later on. In due time, I will also remind you to cast your vote. I would like to ask you, though, to please cast your vote in due time. You will find further information on how to exercise your voting rights in the AGM invitation, which is accessible in the AGM section on the company's website. The company's proxies will vote on the individual agenda items in line with your instructions by releasing the votes which are stored in the system. Postal votes received in due time will also be taken into account when determining the voting result. The voting process and counting of the votes will be monitored by the notary public, who has checked the technical requirements in advance. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the agenda, I would now like to give you, as announced earlier, an initial overview of the attendance at this virtual AGM of Uniper SE as per the list of participants. This includes the shareholders or shareholder representatives who are electronically connected to the meeting. In addition, we are also showing the number of postal votes currently available, which also includes those received from shareholders or their representatives who are not connected to this meeting. The list of participants can be accessed in the password-protected online service. At today's AGM, represented by company proxies and electronically connected, there are 8,257,900,668 Uniper value shares are represented, and this is also the number of votes. This is a participation rate of 99.14% of the registered share capital. Additionally, we've received postal votes in the amount of 1,273,622 Uniper value shares. In total, we've got 8,259,181,000 Uniper value shares, and this is 99.16% of the company's share capital. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now move on to today's agenda. This agenda comprises 9 agenda items, and you will have read them in the invitation, which is why I'll be brief. Item 1 is about the presentation of the annual financial statements and the consolidated financial statements for the Uniper SE for the financial year 2022, together with the combined management report for Uniper SE and the Uniper Group, and the report by the Supervisory Board. So, on that note, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dönges for the report on the situation of your company. Dr. Dönges, you have the floor.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Blades.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blades.
Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders,
auch ich begrüße Sie im
I'd also like to welcome you
sehr herzlich
most cordially to today's annual general meeting of Uniper SE on behalf of the whole executive board. Usually, at this point, it would be the CEO to speak at this point. Michael Lewis is going to assume his capacity as CEO of Uniper very soon. I'm very pleased that he is going to join us as early as on the 1st of June, which will be next week. Today, I'm going to answer your questions on behalf of the Management Board of Uniper, and I would like to give you a brief review and a look ahead too. I've been the Chief Financial Officer at Uniper for almost 3 months. The past few weeks have been intense and very promising and very mixed. It quickly became apparent that I can rely on a very competent, motivated, focused team. In the past few weeks, we've already been able to continue many processes that serve as a starting point for our company's future strategic course. Therefore, I would particularly like to seize the opportunity today to thank my colleagues for their support in finding my way into the complex issues of the energy sector and the specific business processes of Uniper. The often quoted Uniper spirit makes itself felt every day of cooperation, so thank you very much. Before I'd now like to speak on substance, I'd like to seize the opportunity to introduce myself to you as a new member of the Management Board of Uniper. I studied business engineering with a focus on mechanical engineering at the Technical University of Darmstadt in Germany, and I obtained a doctor's degree in economics at Goethe University in Frankfurt. After graduating college, I worked for many years in investment banking, particularly in M&A, capital market transactions and finance. In 2015, I became a member of the steering committee of the Federal Institution for Financial Market Stabilization in Frankfurt. And since 2016, I was in charge of leading it. From 2018 to 2022, I was the managing director of the financial agency of the Federal Republic of Germany, and I was partly in charge of the Financial Market Stabilization Fund and the Economic Stabilization Fund. I am a member of supervisory boards of Commerzbank and TUI. I am married. My husband and I have 4 wonderful children. When I was asked by the Management Board if I wanted to assume the role of CFO, I didn't hesitate long. The energy sector is highly relevant for the economy and for our society. This has also become apparent in the current crisis. But it's also facing an immense challenge, that is decarbonization. The opportunity to be able to support the transformation of a whole industry is something I find really thrilling. As the managing director of the financial agency of the Federal Republic of Germany, I've been able to attend to see to many companies being rescued, and I've seen how that path can actually work out. After stabilization, you can get back into independence, and I'm firmly convinced that this will also succeed with Uniper. So, this is my target. After successful stabilization, with my colleagues, I'd like to take Uniper well through this phase, and I'd like to contribute to Uniper becoming successful again. This also means that our company will become able to resist on the capital market again, and the Federal Republic of Germany should actually be able to give Uniper back into private hands in the medium to long term. Ladies and gentlemen, the attack of Russia on Ukraine is an attack on the order of peace in Europe. The everyday news of suffering, human tragedy and death makes us all very concerned. The consequences of the war are making themselves felt everywhere in the world, and they've also shaken our company substantially. In the last year, they shook up the whole European energy market, causing turbulence, and they plunged Uniper into a deep crisis. Energy has been used as a bargaining chip by Russia. Without any reason, Gazprom Export curtailed gas supplies to Uniper from the 14th of June 2022, so that we did not receive the contractually agreed quantities of gas from Gazprom Export anymore. And they fully stopped delivering from August 2022, late August, and they didn't start again, which means that many other companies of Europe still received deliveries and are still receiving deliveries. We see them in breach of contract. Uniper has taken legal options and measures, including those relating to interim legal relief, to assert its claims against Gazprom Export for failure to deliver gas. Last November, Uniper initiated arbitration proceedings against Gazprom Export. As you know, the consequences of suspended deliveries threatened Uniper's very existence, its going concern. Uniper's former CEO, Klaus-Dieter Mauerbach, explained them to you in detail at the extraordinary general meeting on the 19th of December 2022, so therefore I can now be brief. We had to and did always meet our supply obligations to our customers, municipal utilities and companies, despite the situation threatening our existence. But we were forced to procure gas elsewhere at high prices, but to bear and finance the additional cost, which peaked at 200 million euros a day. The resulting costs accumulated over the weeks and months to a level that was eventually unsustainable for Uniper anymore. In fiscal 2022, additional costs for procuring replacement gas amounted to about 13.2 billion euros. In addition, like any other energy utility, Uniper is obliged to provide collateral payments for commodity transactions. This is common practice in the energy sector to back up transactions to be settled in future. The money flows back to us as soon as we deliver our product. The amount of these temporary collaterals depends on the general level of commodity prices. Amid the significant rise in gas, coal and power prices since summer 2021, Uniper's collateral payments or hedges for these transactions increased many times over and put a massive strain on Uniper's liquidity. In July 2022, Uniper asked the German federal government for state support. Here, to cut a long story short, our survival as a systemically important energy supply, a key utility, was at stake. The months following were characterized by a struggle to stabilize Uniper. In negotiations last year, Uniper vigorously advocated the interests of our employees, customers and shareholders. The team carefully reviewed alternatives, discussed the structure of the package, and thoroughly negotiated the individual components, terms and conditions. Finally, in December, a framework agreement was entered into with the German government. This agreement is the basis for stabilizing Uniper. For stabilization purposes, it provides a capital increase to the tune of approximately 8 billion euros, as well as the creation of authorized capital for 2022 of up to roughly 25 billion euros. A part of the authorized capital of 2022 has already been utilized, namely about 5.5 billion euros. We are fully aware that the negotiated stabilization package is painful for those of you who were shareholders at that point in time, as your stake in our company has been significantly reduced. However, the management board at the time had no choice. Without funds from that capital increase, Uniper would not have been able to continue as a going concern, which also would have had incalculable negative repercussions for the entire German and European energy markets. In addition, insolvency would have led to complete loss of your shares in the company. Shareholders approved measures at the extraordinary general meeting in December last, thus enabling Uniper to continue as a going concern. On behalf of the entire executive board and all employees, I'd like to thank you very much for this. And I'm very pleased to announce some good news for everybody. Uniper is not expecting any more financial losses from replacement for gas curtailments from Russia. The associated delivery obligations to our clients for years 2023 and 2024 have almost completely been hedged by future transactions. Uniper consequently did its homework and reduced the risks of eliminated Russian gas quantities very quickly. We've got firm ground under our feet now again. So today, I can confirm to you again that no further capital increases by the federal government will be necessary. Let's look back in time now. The stabilization of Uniper last year was very important and correct for Germany. Uniper could and can still contribute to security of supply of Germany and Europe with energy. Uniper's gas storage facilities were well filled last winter. As Germany's largest operator of gas storage facilities, we've contributed to preventing the worst fears about people freezing cold homes from becoming reality. Certainly, our reliable power plants have doubtless also made an important contribution to stabilizing the electricity market in the context of Germany's Maintenance of Substitute Power Stations Act. In the nick of time, we provided the market with a total of over 2,000 megawatts of reliable hard coal-fired generating capacity. The lawmaker established the appropriate framework to limit Germany's consumption of natural gas for power generation during this critical winter, and thus to secure gas for heating purposes. This activity and a number of other measures helped ensure that gas consumption last year was 17.5% lower than in the previous year, and that Germany therefore made it safely through the winter too. As a result, Germany also met the European target of reducing its natural gas consumption by 15% over the previous year. So I'd like to be very clear about this. This was a temporary activity in a crisis situation. In the long term, coal to power at Uniper has no future and has to remain a temporary solution. The completion of the first LNG terminal in Germany, in Wilhelmshaven, in December 2022 was a milestone. This terminal will make us more independent in future, and it will make Germany's energy supply more secure. Final inspection of the terminal took place this past February. The newly coined phrase of Germany's new speed will forever be associated with Wilhelmshaven and Uniper. This was a great achievement for the project team, of which we are very proud. With its trading expertise, Uniper is securing LNG deliveries for Germany and other countries. Since December last, every 8 days approximately, an LNG tanker with about 160,000 cubic meters of liquefied gas on board docks at the floating terminal in Wilhelmshaven. This cargo is regasified and then injected into the gas grid. The LNG expands by a factor of 600 and thus supply about 50,000 households for a year. Today and in future, the terminal in Wilhelmshaven alone can meet about 6% of Germany's gas demand. Let us now have a brief look at the numbers for fiscal 2022. Owing to the missing gas supplies from Russia and the high additional costs of replacement, Uniper recorded adjusted EBIT of minus 10.9 billion euros in fiscal 2022, which compares with positive adjusted EBIT of 0.95 billion euros in 2021. That decline was mostly caused by developments in the global commodities segment, gas business. By contrast, Uniper's European power generation segment in particular delivered a positive contribution. Adjusted net income (A&I) for fiscal 22 generally tracked adjusted EBIT and amounted after 12 months to 7.4 billion euros in the negative, which was considerably below the previous year's earnings of 0.75 billion euros. These figures don't include Uniper's Russian company Uniper anymore, which was reclassified as a discontinued operation and fully deconsolidated effective year-end 2022. The Russian gas curtailments had a significant adverse impact on Uniper's 2022 earnings. By contrast, Uniper's European power generation segment developed positively compared with the previous year and was very profitable. That positive performance of our operating business continued in Q1 2023. Uniper started 2023 with a strong first quarter and recorded adjusted EBIT to the tune of 749 million euros. In the previous year, adjusted EBIT amounted to minus 917 million euros, but that was in the crisis year 2022. In the first quarter of 2023 and until today, we haven't incurred any more additional costs for procuring replacement gas. And, as has already been mentioned, this will not be the case anymore in future. With the hedging activities, by which we have almost fully reduced these risks, we're expecting over 2 billion euros of profit before tax, earnings before tax. The appropriation will be fine-tuned with the Federal Republic of Germany in line with European standards for state aid. But despite all this, we're staying cautious because the terrible war in Europe still has incalculable effects on the energy markets. At the same time, we know that at the core, we're a strong company that has played a major role in helping Germany and Europe through the energy crisis. I think we must keep reminding ourselves of this and look to the future, just as confidently as we're looking back today. For 2023, we're expecting significant earnings recovery on a year-on-year basis. If current price levels continue, this recovery will result in a positive group adjusted EBIT and adjusted net income. Since reaching an agreement with the German government, ladies and gentlemen, we've been working systematically to comply with and meet the conditions imposed by the European Commission in connection with the conclusion of the stabilization package. These conditions, rules contain, among other things, the meeting of several structural measures. These include the sale of our Uniper stake, our shareholdings in Uniper, and of certain conventional assets and certain other shareholdings. We have already successfully concluded the sale of our 20% share in BBL, company VOF of the Netherlands. We're expecting the conclusion of the sale of our maritime fuel trading business in the United Arab Emirates soon as well. For any other assets and shareholdings that the European Commission's conditions require us to sell by the end of 2026, we're working hard to find the best possible owners. Shareholders. Our shareholder profile has also changed considerably. As part of the stabilization package, Fortum sold all its stock to the German government. Our collaboration with Fortum in hydrogen, renewables, and in hydropower, and physical trading in the Nordics, in Scandinavia, has now been exited. Today, Uniper's majority shareholder is the Federal Republic of Germany, which, under the leadership of the Federal Ministry for Finance, holds about 99% of all stakes in our company. This means, as agreed in the stabilization package, that without any approval by the German federal government, Uniper won't pay out a dividend until the stabilization ends. Until that period ends. The German government has pledged to the European Union to indicate by the end of this year how it intends to reduce its Uniper stake to 25% plus one share. We'll be proposing our ideas for this in the months ahead. Our aim is to return Uniper into predominantly private hands as an independent company as soon as possible. This objective is one of the main guiding principles in reviewing our future strategy that's currently underway. Uniper's stabilization last year wouldn't have been possible without great staff, though. I would like to thank all colleagues from Uniper from the very bottom of my heart. In an extreme situation, over a long period of time and a high pressure, you achieved extraordinary performance every day, and even more, you all contributed substantially to the energy security of supply in Germany and Europe. This has been excellent, and it still is. I've had the opportunity to meet many of our employees in person in the past few weeks. I'm impressed by their positive spirit, their momentum, and the open, inclusive way they interact with each other. I'm also impressed by their expertise and motivation, becoming apparent day in, day out. The last few months have been extraordinary, and they've demanded much from all of us, from all our employees. The members of the Board of Management are very aware of this, which is why the well-being of staff is one of our top priorities. In order to achieve major progress in this area, we've developed new approaches to health promotion and company pensions. The social partner model for company pensions is the first of its kind in Germany, and it offers those who are saving for retirement greater opportunities for return, combined with extensive protection against significant fluctuation in financial markets. All these are important contributors to social responsibility towards our employees.
Eine unserer zentralen Aufgaben ist es, meine Damen und Herren,
One of our major tasks, ladies and gentlemen, is to focus on today, but also on tomorrow. After 2022, that crisis year, we mustn't lose sight of our company's future viability, and we need to brace ourselves. More than anything, we mustn't compromise on our climate targets. After all, supply security and climate protection are two sides of the same coin. Our objective is for our power business in Europe to be carbon neutral by the year 2035. We want to be at least halfway there by 2030. In addition, we intend to reduce our indirect Scope 3 emissions by 2035 compared to 2021 by 35%. A clearly defined coal exit strategy, including asset sales, and the decarbonization of our gas-fired power plants are pivotal for achieving these targets. Since the beginning of the EU emissions trading scheme in 2005, Uniper has reduced its annual direct carbon emissions in Europe by 70 million metric tons. That's a decline of approximately 73%.
Dass insbesondere Deutschland in Europa auf Erdgas angewiesen ist, hat uns das letzte
Last year made it particularly clear, painfully clear, that among European countries, Germany is dependent on natural gas more than any other country. This will continue to be the case for some time until green gases gradually replace natural gas. Diversifying the supply of natural gas, especially LNG, and building the respective infrastructure are therefore of great importance currently and in years ahead. To this end, we're seizing opportunities in the market regarding the procurement of LNG and of gas that enters the European market via pipelines. The safe and reliable operation of the FSRU in Wilhelmshaven requires the prevention of undesirable growth of organisms on plant components that come into contact with seawater. The use of chlorine as a biocide is a common, effective an ecologically acceptable method for preventing the growth of marine organisms, including on other seagoing vessels, and ensuring safe operations. In close cooperation with Deutsche Terminal GmbH, which is the operator of all LNG terminals in Germany for which the German government is responsible, we're supporting the search for possible alternatives to electrochlorination on the FSRU Hoog Esperanza. Many alternative old anti-fouling processes are being studied, and their suitability for the Hoog Esperanza is being evaluated. We expect the findings of this extensive review of technical alternatives to come in Q3 2023. Together with RWE and EnBW, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, with the German government to supply LNG terminals with sufficient amounts of LNG. These are firm, definite supply commitments Uniper will meet from its existing portfolio and some additional amounts of LNG from the world market. In order to further diversify our LNG portfolio, we concluded a long-term contract for the flexible supply of LNG to Germany and Europe from Woodside's global portfolio from January 2023 onwards. Woodside is a large Australia-based natural gas producer and has been a trading partner of Uniper for a number of years. Our decision considered, among other things, the environmental impact assessment conducted by Woodside on the proposed Scarborough gas field off the coast of Western Australia, which was reviewed by the authorities and approved subject to certain conditions. We take any additional objections and concerns very seriously and discuss these issues regularly, both with NGOs and as part of our interaction with Woodside's experts. For years, Uniper has been deeply committed to improving human rights. In order to comply with the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act of Germany, which became effective this year, Uniper further improved its existing processes for screening and engaging with suppliers. The Management Board regularly addresses Uniper's measures to ensure compliance with human rights and appointed a human rights officer who reports to the Management Board on the matter. Additionally, Uniper is active in the energy industry dialogue coordinated by the Federal German Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs. The dialogue serves as a forum in which we, with other energy companies and other important stakeholders like civil society organizations, trade unions and trade associations, identify industry-specific risks and develop solutions for ensuring compliance with human rights along supply and value chains. We participate in the Better Coal initiative to perform due diligence along the coal supply chain. This non-profit initiative was founded by several major European energy suppliers and is committed towards providing for a better and more responsible supply chain in coal. Concerning our coal supplies from Colombia, Uniper itself, but also Better Coal, have been in an ongoing dialogue with relevant stakeholders for many years. We're also trying to exert our influence on mining companies to likewise actively support the peace process there. As a matter of principle, it is our duty to regularly monitor the ESG risk profile of our business relationships with other companies. Currently, for example, the Azerbaijani energy company SOCAR, from which Uniper procures gas, is classified as a medium-risk supplier. In these cases, Uniper's approach is to first engage in dialogue about key issues we can influence over time, in order to foster continuous improvement in our suppliers' ESG performance over time. Considering the activities just outlined, we strongly refuse the allegations contained in the counter-motions filed by the Critical Shareholders Association. I'm firmly convinced that step by step, Uniper will become a more sustainable, greener company. This includes not only reducing our own carbon footprint, but also fostering renewables growth and ramping up our activities in the hydrogen business along the entire value chain.
So wurden 2022 und
So
im laufenden
in
Jahr
2022 and in fiscal 2023, the current year, important progress has been made on several hydrogen and renewable energy projects. Uniper is using its expertise to propel the establishment of a hydrogen economy along the whole value chain. This includes research, conversion, energy production, storage and supplies, down to import and trading. We're contributing, making all hydrogen an integral part of the energy supply system in Germany and Europe. Let me quote a few examples. Testing green hydrogen technologies on an industrial scale in Bad Lachstedt in Germany as part of a real-world laboratory project supported by the German government. There are plans for low-carbon hydrogen production at our Killingham site in North Lincolnshire in the UK. There's also the example of carrying out a 100-megawatt electrolysis project for green hydrogen on the grounds of Maasvlakte power station in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. There's developing an import terminal for green ammonia in Wilhelmshaven, and there are plans for a 410-megawatt electrolysis unit. Together, they could provide approximately 295,000 metric tons of green hydrogen annually, which is about 10% of Germany's anticipated demand for 2030. And there's the development of a planned hydrogen project at a natural gas storage facility in Krummhörn, Germany, that's no longer used commercially. It's disused. It's a pilot unit with a storage capacity of up to 250,000 cubic meters of hydrogen that's scheduled to enter service by 2024. As you will know, we terminated our cooperation with Fortum in December 2022, and thus our joint activities relating to renewables. This meant that we had to restructure and fill important positions. Proudly, I can say that this process has been very successful for us, and that our renewables unit currently consists of approximately 70 experienced, motivated colleagues. Our planning provides that the team will probably double in size by the end of year. Since the unit was established, we've worked hard to strengthen our market position and expand our project pipeline. I'm pleased to be able to report to you that with a project pipeline of 4 gigawatts and an additional gigawatt in projects being developed, we're on track. But this is only the beginning. We are confident of bringing several hundreds of megawatts of solar PV capacity to the investment decision stage this year and next. In addition, we want to bring another 3 gigawatts for investment to investment maturity in the next 2 years. Our objective of developing 1 gigawatt of construction-ready capacity per year will already be achievable next year. Our renewables ambitions are high, and we'll continue working hard on this, and we'll continue working on reaching our target of a more sustainable future. As you can see, Uniper's transformation into a green company is well underway. Our sustainability report describes how we've also made progress in other aspects of sustainability, such as biodiversity, community engagement, diversity, fairness and inclusion. In addition, we have established a DEI Council, a Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Council, in order to further advance these issues at Uniper. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at a point where we can again fully focus on our day-to-day business, move projects forward and look ahead. Uniper's strong points, Uniper's resilience and adaptability have brought us through very checkered times, and I'm convinced that these capabilities will also help us actively shape the future.
Versorgungssicherheit und
Our
Dekarbonisierung.
focus in this context will remain on supply and decarbonization.
Und ich freue mich sehr darauf,
I therefore see Uniper's future with great confidence and look forward to working with my management board colleagues and our employees to lead Uniper into a prosperous future, together with Michael Lewis, Holger Kritz and Carsten Poppinger, who's going to assume the role of Chief Commercial Officer CCO from Nick ten Hollander. It is with great confidence that I'm looking towards the future of Uniper. I'm looking forward to lead Uniper into a prosperous future, together with my colleagues on the management board and our staff,
und die Jahrhundertaufgabe der
and to shape
Transformation der Energiewelt zu gestalten.
the challenge of the century of transforming the energy world.
Grundlage für die Dekarbonisierung
This will give us a basis for decarbonizing the economy and will create a more sustainable basis for the life and livelihood of people and future generations in Germany and in Europe.
Ich darf nun das Wort
I would now like to hand over back to you, Tom Blades.
Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, ich spreche sicherlich auch in Ihrem
Ladies and gentlemen, I take it I'm also speaking on your behalf that you will join me in thanking Dr. Dönges for her report.
Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now move on to the report by the Supervisory Board.
haben Sie mir zunächst
Please allow me to make a number of introductory remarks on the past year, which in many respects marks a watershed moment.
24. Februar 2022
Since the 24th of February 2022, the world has radically changed. The Russian invasion in Ukraine has shocked and affected us all a lot, and we condemn Russia's continuing war of aggression in the strongest possible terms.
ist es bis heute nicht.
Sadly, to this day, it has not been possible to put an end to the armed conflict.
Der Ausbruch des russischen
The
Kriegs
beginning of Russia's war against Ukraine and its consequences mean that the entire energy sector is confronted with historic challenges,
als größter
and
deutscher
Uniper,
Gasimporteur
Germany's biggest gas importer, was and still is particularly affected.
ausbleibende Gaslieferungen aus
The
Russland,
shortfall of Russian gas deliveries, the resulting gas replacement purchases, and enormous price increases on the energy markets put Uniper's liquidity and equity under a lot of pressure.
Schließlich wurde es erforderlich,
To the point that
dass im Juli letzten
last
Jahres
July,
bei der Bundesregierung
Uniper had to apply for stabilization measures with the German federal government.
letzten Jahres konnte
In December of last year,
monatelange
after months of intensive negotiations with the federal German government, a framework agreement was concluded between Uniper and the federal government.
der darin
The implementation of the capital measures it included were approved by you, our shareholders,
in eine
at an extraordinary general meeting on the 19th of December of last year.
Dadurch ist die finanzielle Stabilität
This ensures Uniper's financial stability, also in the
und die
future,
Uniper kann weiterhin
and
einen
Uniper
signifikanten
can
Beitrag
continue
für
to
die
make a
Energieversorgung und
significant
Sicherheit
contribution
Deutschlands
to
und
Germany's
Europas leisten.
and Europe's security of energy
Meine Damen und
supply.
Herren, ich möchte
Ladies and gentlemen, I will now move on to the
des
details of
Aufsichtsrats
the
des
Uniper SE's Supervisory
Der
Board
Aufsichtsrat
report.
hat den Ihnen
The
vorliegenden
Supervisory
Bericht
Board
in einer
discussed
Sitzung am
and
16.
adopted the
Februar
report, which has also been
2023
made available
beraten
to
und
you
beschlossen.
in its meeting on the 16th of February
heute vor allem auf die
2023.
wesentlichen
Today, I would like to
Aufsichtsratsarbeit eingehen.
particularly focus on the key aspects of the
Der
Supervisory
vollständige
Board's
Bericht ist
activity.
im
You will find
Geschäftsbericht
the full
auf den
wording
Seiten
of
2
the
bis
report
8
on pages 2
enthalten.
to
Der
8
auf
of
der
the
Internetseite
annual
der
report,
Gesellschaft
which is
unter
accessible
der
in the
Rubrik
AGM
Hauptversammlung
section
öffentlich
of the company's
zugänglich ist.
website.
Bevor ich näher über den Umgang
Before I
mit den
talk
Folgen des
about
russischen Angriffs auf
what
die
the
Ukraine von
Russian
Uniper berichte,
attack on
lassen Sie
Ukraine
mich
means
noch
for
zunächst
Uniper and
auf
how
die
we deal with that,
personellen Veränderungen
let me
im
briefly
Vorstand
address
und
the
im
personnel changes on the Board of Management and the Supervisory Board.
Im Zuge der
In
Stabilisierung
the context of
und
the
der Veränderung bei
stabilization
Unipers
measures and the
Mehrheitsaktionär
changes at
hat es
Uniper's
im Vorstand
majority
der Uniper
shareholder, a
Jungs
number of changes
mehrere
occurred
Wechsel gegeben.
at the level of Uniper's
Ein weiterer
Board of
Wechsel steht
Management,
an.
and another change
Mit
is
Wirkung zu Ende
imminent.
Februar dieses Jahres
With effect from the end of February of this year, our CEO, Professor Dr. Klaus-Dieter Maubach, whose resignation had already been announced in January of 2023, resigned from the Board of Management of Uniper. Klaus-Dieter Maubach had been the chairman of Uniper's Board of Management since the 29th of March 2021, and he deserves special recognition for his extraordinary achievements as a crisis manager during the year 2022. Klaus-Dieter Maubach steered Uniper safely through the existential crisis, which was triggered by the Russian gas curtailment, and under his management, Uniper was stabilized in December of last year after the federal government's equity injection. It is primarily to Klaus-Dieter Maubach's credit that Uniper has a future. Ultimately, though, he decided that the work on Uniper's strategic realignment in this phase be best left to a new leadership team. Together with Klaus-Dieter Maubach, Tina Turmela as CFO and David Bryson as Chief Operating Officer resigned from Uniper's Board of Management with effect from the 28th of February 2023. Tina Turmela and David Bryson, together with their Board of Management colleagues, steered Uniper through turbulent times. In April 2021, Tina Turmela joined Uniper's Board of Management, coming from Fortum's management, and at Uniper she led the finance division with great dedication. In particularly challenging times, Tina Turmela made important decisions for the benefit of the company. As Chief Operating Officer, David Bryson had been a Board of Management member of Uniper since November 2019. As Chief Sustainability Officer, he dedicated himself to sustainability issues and helped drive relevant measures. We would like to thank Klaus-Dieter Maubach, Tina Turmela and David Bryson for their excellent work for the Uniper Group and for everything they've achieved together with Nick den Hollander and all the other members of staff for the stabilization of Uniper and for giving the Uniper Group a future. As explained earlier, since the 1st of March 2023, Jutta Dönges has been the head of finance. David Bryson was succeeded by Holger Kretz, who, since the 1st of March 2023, has been the Chief Operating Officer and a member of the Board of Management. Ms. Dönges and Mr. Kretz have already introduced themselves to you. Also, as I mentioned earlier, from the 1st of July 2023, Michael Lewis will complement the Board of Management team as CEO, and Mr. Lewis already introduced himself to you. Before I talk about the changes in the Supervisory Board, let me briefly address the imminent change about the Chief Commercial Officer position. Nick den Hollander, too, who has been our Chief Commercial Officer since June 2020, will leave the company with effect from the 31st of July 2023. I would like to thank Nick den Hollander for his service and his dedication to Uniper during what proved very difficult times also for his portfolio, and I wish him all the best. I am particularly grateful that he is willing to continue to stay in his function until the 31st of July 2023 to allow for the best possible transition to his successor, Carsten Poppinger, who will join the Board of Management on the 1st of October 2023. Now, on to the changes on the Supervisory Board. I've already spoken about the changes in the composition of the shareholder representatives on the Supervisory Board. As regards the employee representatives, Oliver Bieniek, Barbara Jagodzinski and Andrzej Malwijk resigned from the Supervisory Board on the 18th of May 2022. In the Works Council meeting of Uniper SE on the 22nd of March 2022, Holger Geseller, Diana Kirchner and Magnus Nettini were elected to the Supervisory Board as new employee representatives with effect from the end of the AGM on the 18th of May 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, Let me take the opportunity to thank, on behalf of the entire Supervisory Board, both the current and former Board of Management members for their work and commitment during the crisis year 2022. It goes without saying that my thanks also goes out to the former Supervisory Board members for their commitment and achievements during what proved to be a particularly challenging year.
Meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, let me now move on to the impact of the Ukraine war and the stabilization measures, both of which were key areas of focus in the Supervisory Board's work last year. The Supervisory Board has dealt in detail with what at times amounted to extreme price developments on the international and national energy markets, including the economic situation of the company, about which it was continuously informed by the Board of Management. More specifically, in this context, since February 2022, the Supervisory Board dealt with tightened liquidity requirements, the preservation of the credit rating, and the stabilization of the company on the whole, in order to ensure security of supply in Germany. Both at the full Supervisory Board and in the Audit and Risk Committee, the number of meetings, because of the tight liquidity, equity and earnings situation, was significantly increased in order to adequately meet the Supervisory Board's increased monitoring and advisory obligations. During 4 regular and 25 extraordinary meetings and more committee meetings, the Supervisory Board addressed in detail the situation of the company, especially with regard to the tight liquidity situation, changes in the credit rating, and, in the second half year of 2022, the stabilization negotiations with the federal government and Fortum, and passed any resolutions that were necessary. The Supervisory Board was kept updated on recent events by the Board of Management at all times. If required, meetings were convened at very short notice, and additionally, the Supervisory Board was also informed by the Board of Management in writing. The Board of Management reported to the Supervisory Board on an ongoing basis about Uniper's liquidity situation, which, due to increased margining requirements at the beginning of the year, and because of the Russian gas curtailment since the 14th of June, had come under significant pressure. Because of the extreme events on the European energy markets towards the end of the fiscal year 2021 and at the beginning of 2022, margining requirements had increased significantly and strongly impacted Uniper's liquidity. The level of market prices caused unprecedented liquidity needs in the context of the collaterals to be provided since the end of 2021. In the middle of the year, the liquidity needs, as a consequence of the Russian gas curtailment, was increased significantly again. Starting on the 14th of June 2022, Uniper only received a fraction of the contractually agreed gas volumes from Russia and had to resort to gas replacement purchases at considerably higher prices to meet the delivery commitments. The procurement costs were borne by Uniper alone initially, which led to high losses, but you know all of that already. Against the backdrop of the current liquidity situation, the Supervisory Board discussed this, of course, regularly with the Board of Management, and also dealt with the funding measures, especially with the negotiations with KfW on the increase of the credit facility, which was first concluded in January of 2022. Initially, this amounted to 2 billion euros, and in the course of 2022, it was gradually increased to a total volume of 18 billion euros. Also, the Supervisory Board dealt with the partial utilization of the KfW credit facility by Uniper. At the beginning of this year, the credit line was reduced to 16.5 billion euros. In connection with the Uniper's liquidity, the Board of Management regularly reported to the Supervisory Board on the review and the implementation of other funding measures, and also on the review under insolvency law and the negotiations with the German federal government and Fortum. Another key area of focus of the Supervisory Board's work was Uniper's credit rating, especially the Standard & Poor's credit rating, which had come under a lot of pressure because of the liquidity crisis in the course of last year. A stable investment grade rating is key for Uniper and is therefore a key focus of the Board of Management and Supervisory Board's work. The Board of Management reported in detail on the ongoing talks with the rating agencies and the requirements put up by them. The number of changes when it comes to Uniper's rating issued by the rating agencies and the downgrade from triple B to triple B minus with a negative watch. This was done by S&P Global Ratings in May 2022, and it was discussed in great detail with the Supervisory Board. In the context of the agreement between Uniper and the federal government on the key points of the first stabilization package in July 2022, S&P confirmed the triple B minus investment grade rating with a negative watch and also graded Uniper as a so-called government-related entity, which meant which was supported by the rating. And this rating was confirmed in S&P's report in February of this year. In connection with the gas curtailments from Gazprom export, possible legal steps were discussed, in particular the possibility to claim damages and enforce claims. So this was then discussed intensively. The Management Board also reported to the Supervisory Board on the progress of the arbitration proceedings, which were initiated in November 2022 against Gazprom export, and also on the measures initiated in terms of interim relief. More specifically, the Supervisory Board in the second half of the year discussed the negotiations between the federal government and Uniper's former majority shareholder Fortum on Uniper stabilization. The details of the stabilization package were shared in great detail with you at the extraordinary AGM in December of last year. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now move on to other key areas of focus of the Supervisory Board's work in the last fiscal year. At the beginning of the year, the Board of Management informed the Supervisory Board on the strategy execution and in the course of the year on the necessary adjustments to the strategy. A key area of focus was on Uniper's transformation towards having a decarbonized portfolio with renewable energies as key pillars and also on the hydrogen business. Because of changed market conditions, the Board of Management also started to subject the gas segment to a fundamental review, and this was also discussed in detail with the Supervisory Board. Other key topics was the development of European and German energy politics, the changes of the regulatory environment and the macroeconomic situation in the countries where Uniper is active, in particular with a view to the different business fields of Uniper. The Supervisory Board discussed in great detail Uniper's positioning regarding the coal exit in Germany, which is of great significance for Uniper's core business. As regards the global commodities business, the Supervisory Board was kept updated on key procurement and supply contracts, and it was also kept updated about the pipeline project Nord Stream 2, which had been stopped because of the geopolitical situation. At the end of the reporting period, and as a consequence of Fortum's leaving as majority shareholder, the Supervisory Board also discussed the ending of the cooperation schemes in the area of hydrogen, renewable energies, Nordic power and optimization. The Supervisory Board was also regularly informed on any changes in terms of HSE and sustainability. In this context, I would like to mention that the Supervisory Board has formed a sustainability committee in order to live up to the specific challenges in this area. Over and above that, the Supervisory Board also discussed changes to the Management Board's remuneration system. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supervisory Board has examined the annual financial statement for the year ended 31st of December 2022 for Uniper SE, the Combined Management Report, the consolidated financial statement in accordance with IFRS, and the Management Board's proposal, and it has taken note of the audit report which had received the auditor's unqualified opinion. These documents, together with the other documents under item 1, are available on the company's website. After concluding its own examination of the documents, the Supervisory Board had no objections to the documents. At the Supervisory Board's meeting on the 16th of February 2023, the Supervisory Board approved and thus adopted Uniper SE's consolidated financial statement. It also agreed with the other statements. It also agreed with the combined management report, in particular with the details on the future performance of the company. Seeing that no domination agreement with Uniper SE is in place, the Board of Management of Uniper SE, in line with the legal requirements for the period starting on the 1st of January 2022 until the 21st of December 2022, a dependency report on reports between Uniper SE related parties has been prepared. And the report received the unqualified auditor's opinion. The report was submitted to the Supervisory Board in due time. The Supervisory Board reviewed it and discussed the details of it with the Board of Management. The reporting obligation on relations between Uniper SE and related parties ceased to exist during last year in the context of the sale of Fortum's shares. And according to Section 29, Paragraph 2, Number 2 of the Energy Security Act, in connection with Section 7D of the Economic Stabilization Acceleration Act, and the provisions on dominating companies, including Section 312 of the German Stock Corporation Act, mean that this is not applicable to UBG Uniper Beteiligungsholdings GmbH. After its final examination by the Supervisory Board concluded that the report by the Board of Management on related parties is in line with the legal requirements. After the final examination by the Supervisory Board, there were no objections to the report on related parties. The Supervisory Board also published a report on the review of the related parties report.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, may I briefly speak about the developments in this year so far. In April this year, the Supervisory Board dealt with an update of the commercial paper program of Uniper and approved the future utilization of the CP program in an unchanged extent of up to 1.8 billion euros. With the renewal of the commercial paper program, we are creating the prerequisites for funding opportunities on the capital market again. First commercial papers have already been successfully placed. In early May this year, we were able to report about pleasing first financial results for 2023. In a favorable market environment, Uniper recorded positive results for the first quarter. At the bottom line, our company didn't incur any additional costs from procuring replacement gas for the Russian curtailments in Q1 2023. This also means that our company does not require any additional equity injections by the federal government. On the contrary, it's been possible to nearly hedge fully our gas supply obligations for years 2023 and 2024, partly by future contracts from which we're expecting significant profit. Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding my report, I would like to speak about conflicts of interest on the Supervisory Board that have emerged. The representatives of Fortum, Mr. Markus Rauramo, Esa Heverinen, Bernhard Günther, and Nora Steiner-Forsberg, as a precaution, abstained from voting when it came to granting approval to entering into a term sheet and a change term sheet between Uniper Fortum and the federal government for stabilizing Uniper because of a potential interest conflict. The previously mentioned Fortum representatives also abstained from voting as a precaution when it came to granting approval to entering into a subsequent agreement between Uniper Global Commodities, Fortum Ireland and the KfW, which was entered into in connection with an increase of the KfW credit facility, because a potential conflict of interest might have emerged. In connection with the change of control, the representatives of Fortum also abstained from voting when it came to the payback, a redemption of a €4 billion Fortum loan, and for the agreement of a first right of offer between Uniper and Fortum for the case that Uniper should decide to sell the Swedish hydropower or nuclear power business or parts thereof. There were no other conflicts of interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to conclude the report of the Supervisory Board. At this point, I should like to thank the old and new Board of Management and the whole staff of Uniper for the extremely challenging work in the crisis year 2022. And this is also on behalf of the whole Supervisory Board. This performance, this achievement was definitely not without, didn't go without saying in the extraordinary circumstances that were challenging in any respect. They deserve our respect and the highest amount of recognition. I would also like to speak about the countermotions to be published. As for the countermotions by the Dachverband of Critical Shareholders and EV, I'd like to confirm that the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE met its duties and tasks according to the law, the Articles of Association and the Rules of Procedure in a comprehensive way and thoroughly. It also dealt intensely with the situation of the company and discussed the consequences of the continuously changing energy policy and economic framework conditions. The Supervisory Board also looked into the lawfulness, the purposefulness and the appropriateness of company management. The Supervisory Board was directly involved in any transactions of particular relevance for the group and discussed them also on the basis of reports from the Management Board. This is also shown in detail in the Supervisory Board report, which is printed in the Management Report of Uniper SE for fiscal 2022, page 2 et sequitur. As shown in more detail in the dedicated non-financial group report, Uniper has comprehensive policies for dealing with essential ESG topics. The Code of Conduct for Uniper also deals with compliance topics such as the fight against corruption and the protection of human rights. The Supervisory Board has formed a sustainability committee which supports the Supervisory Board in monitoring the effectiveness of the ESG guidelines and procedures of Uniper SE and the strategic sustainability activities of Uniper concerning the expectations of various stakeholders. This includes monitoring the performance of Uniper SE with regard to sustainability targets and indicators and to provide proposals to the Supervisory Board on essential ESG topics and prepare respective decisions. Therefore, on behalf of the Supervisory Board, there is no reason to refuse granting approval of the activities of the Supervisory Board for fiscal 2022 and the acting members of that year. In addition, the Supervisory Board is in agreement with the Management Board with regard to these counter-motions. On the counter-motions of Nina Palmer on items 5 and 6, I should like to say that the Supervisory Board believes that they lack any reason. The Supervisory Board sees no risk that the competence profile of the Supervisory Board would no longer be met if Professor Dr. Ines Zenke and Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier were to be elected to the Supervisory Board, and this would also apply to the proposed change of the Articles of Association under item 6. Under item 5, 4 candidates proposed as members of the shareholders' bench on the Supervisory Board to the annual general meeting. The election would occur effective as of the end of today's annual general meeting for the rest of the tenure of the Supervisory Board members that left on the 21st of December 2022. That is up to the end of the ordinary annual general meeting 2026. Professor Dr. Ines Zenke and Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier are proposed to be elected as Supervisory Board members. If these proposals are accepted, the Supervisory Board would consist of 12 members, of which 10 would be independent, which is part of the Articles of Association too. Under item 6, the change of Section 8 of the Articles of Association of Uniper SE is proposed in order to introduce a right of appointment for the Federal Republic of Germany. Under the agreement between Uniper and the Federal Republic of Germany about stabilization activities, it has been agreed to include an appointment right of the Federal Government of Germany for up to 2 members of shareholder representatives in the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE. The appointment right of the Federal Republic of Germany would only become effective when the proposed change of the Articles of Association is entered in the commercial register. It can only be performed, additionally, to the effect where one of the currently proposed shareholder representatives elected on the grounds of proposal by the Federal Republic of Germany should leave. Therefore, during the current tenure of the Supervisory Board members, that is, for the current period of election, the Federal Republic of Germany cannot deploy any other further members on the Supervisory Board. In addition, the Federal Republic of Germany has expressly declared vis-à-vis the company that it will waive any rights of appointment for both Supervisory Board members for the current period of tenure. This makes sure that during the current period, even if somebody leaves early, some Supervisory Board members leave early, no other members would be deployed by the Federal Republic of Germany and appointed for Supervisory Board. Item 2 provides for an approval of the activities of the acting members of the Management Board of Uniper SE for fiscal 2022. Item 3 provides for a decision, a resolution, to approve of the activities of the acting members of the Supervisory Board in fiscal 2022. Item 4 shall then treat the appointment of the auditors of the statements. Besides the annual statements and the consolidated statements and their auditing, the appointment for interim statements and interim management reports would be a subject of that resolution too. Item 5 provides for a resolution concerning elections to the Supervisory Board. The Supervisory Board proposes the following people to be elected as members of the Supervisory Board: Gerhard Holtmeier, Markus Schenk, Ines Zenke and myself. Now, as announced previously, I would like to give the candidates available the opportunity to introduce themselves briefly. I would first like to ask Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier to introduce himself. He was appointed by the court on the 21st of March 2023 as a Supervisory Board member. Mr. Holtmeier, it's all yours.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Blades.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, I would also like to welcome you most cordially here today, and I'm pleased to attend today's annual general meeting of Uniper. I'd like to introduce myself. I am a lawyer by profession, and I'm looking back on approximately 30 years of experience in the energy sector. After stints at a predecessor company of Uniper, Ruhrgas AG, in gas procurement and as an assistant to the management board at Ruhrgas Energie Beteiligungs AG, RGE, I worked from early 2000 at Banker Salomon Oppenheim in the energy public sector of investment banking. In 2007, I went back into the energy sector and into the management board of VNG in Leipzig. 3 years later, I joined the management board of Tüger AG, and in 2018, from 2018, I chaired the management board of Gassak Group in Berlin. Since 2021, I dealt in connection with my advocates, with my lawyers' activities, with questions of sustainable provisions and the assistance of company in crisis situations and change processes. For example, I'm one of the authors of a comment on the Buildings Energy Act, and I plan to support changes in the future too. Since the end of last year, I've been the managing director of UBG Uniper Beteiligungsholding GmbH. I was proposed by the Federal Ministry for Finance as a successor to Ms. Dönges to the Supervisory Board. I will also use the guest right of the Federal Republic of Germany. I live in Starnberg. I'm married and I have 5 grown-up children. Berlin is a second home base for myself that has grown very much to my heart. It would be a great pleasure to me to be elected as a Supervisory Board member of Uniper. I think I can also contribute with my host of experience to the future of Uniper. As early as now, I find the cooperation with the Management Board and other colleagues of the Supervisory Board as very constructive. Thank you very much for the trust you're placing in me, and I'd like to conclude with Glück auf, which is the miner's greeting. Dr. Holtmeier, thank you very much. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Markus Schenk, who's also up for election, to introduce himself. Mr. Schenk, it's all yours. Thank you, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, many of you might remember me from my days as a CFO on the E.ON Group, but I would like to use the opportunity still to introduce myself today. I'm an economist with a doctor's degree by profession, and over the course of my career, I have gone through various stints in banking, consultancy and industry. I gained my first CFO experience between 2006 and 2013 as a CFO at E.ON. Afterwards, I joined Goldman Sachs International in London, and in 2015, I joined Deutsche Bank as a CFO, where a little time later, I was also in charge of the management of the global capital market business. Since 2019, I was a partner at the London-based investment bank Perella Weinberg, and in June last, I assumed the management of the investment banking in the DACH region of the American investment bank Lazard. In this capacity, I was one of the assistants to the stabilization of Uniper as a consultant of the federal government. I have 4 children and live in Munich. I would also be very pleased to be elected as a supervisory board member of Uniper today. I firmly believe in the future of Uniper as a key company, a system-relevant company in Europe, and with my expertise in the financial sector, I would like to make some contribution to Uniper's success in the capital market. Thank you very much. Dr. Schenk, thank you very much. Next, I would like to ask Professor Dr. Ines Zenker to introduce herself. Ms. Zenker, it's all yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Blades. Shareholders, I should also like to use the opportunity to introduce myself, of course. I was appointed by the Federal Republic of Germany as a Supervisory Board member, and since December 2022, I've been a Supervisory Board member of Uniper, appointed by court. The Supervisory Board also elected me as a Deputy Chairwoman in December 2022. May I say a few words on my career? On my CV, I studied law with the first and second exam required by the German state, and I have been a chartered lawyer since 25 years, almost 25 years, and for about the same period of time I've been a partner and co-owner of the Becker Büttner Held firm, which employs 600 employees. It's even longer, namely since 1995, that I've been dealing with energy law. In this context, I've been dealing with all questions that keep companies busy when it comes to energy or infrastructure. Obviously, and I don't need to explain that to you, in the current circumstances, this is extremely challenging, especially if you consider the past year with the threat of a gas emergency and an emergency lack of gas and enormous price developments. What else can I say? I obtained a doctor's degree in energy law, and I am also an approved lawyer for administration law. And for a number of years, I have also had an honorary professorship at the College for Sustainable Development of Eberswalde, HNEE. And there, I am reading on the field of infrastructural law and management. Currently, my students are preparing for the master's and bachelor's degrees. I work and live with my family in Berlin and have been there for a number of years. And lastly, at this point, I would also like to add again that Uniper is not just a company that's very important to the system, but by and large, it is a very valuable, innovative company with highly committed staff. It's always been a great pleasure to support the company, what with all the challenges in store for the future. I'll be pleased if you were to place your trust in me for the next Supervisory Board seat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to you too, Professor Dr. Zenker. Ladies and gentlemen, in the invitation documents we'll find further information on the candidates, including their CVs. Each of the proposed candidates should be elected effective as of the end of today's annual general meeting for the rest of the tenure of the members of the Supervisory Board who left on the evening of the 21st of December 2022. That is up to the end of the annual general meeting that will decide about the approval of activities for the third fiscal year after the election. It continues. This sentence continues. Yes, thank you. Whereas that fiscal year in which they are elected is not taken into consideration, but at the longest they shall stay for 6 years. As was explained in the invitation, the Supervisory Board believes that Markus Schenk, Ines Zenker and my person do not have any personal or business relations to Uniper SE or affiliated companies, the bodies of Uniper SE, or any shareholder with a material shareholding in Uniper SE that would have to be disclosed to the annual general meeting according to recommendation C13 of the German Corporate Governance Code. According to the Supervisory Board, Dr. Markus Schenk and myself are also independent for the purposes of the German Corporate Governance Code. Ines Zenker and Gerhard Holtmeier have been proposed to the Supervisory Board by the Federal Republic of Germany, so therefore they are not independent of the Federal Republic of Germany. In addition, Dr. Gerhard Holtmeier, as a managing director of UBG Uniper Beteiligungsholding GmbH, whose shareholdings are held by the Federal Ministry for Finance and the Federal Republic of Germany as a consequence, in a business relationship with the Federal Republic of Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you that all candidates for the Supervisory Board will take care that they can provide enough time to perform their tasks. In addition, the election proposals by the Supervisory Board particularly consider the approved targets for the composition of the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE and the requirement profile for the overall body. In the event they're elected, all candidates have explained that they would accept the office.
Item 6 is a vote on amendments to Section 8 of the authorization regarding the right of appointment by the acquisition company of the federal government, UBG Uniper Beteiligungsholding GmbH, for up to 2 members of the shareholder representatives in Uniper SE Supervisory Board.
Mit dieser Satzungsregelung wird das
This amendment to the Article Association will implement the right of appointment by the acquisition company of the federal level, UBG Uniper Beteiligungsholding GmbH, for up to 2 members of the shareholder representatives and supervisory board, which in the context of the framework agreement agreed between Uniper SE and the federal government on the 19th of December 2022 on stabilization measures according to the Energy Security Act. Item 7 includes a resolution on the amendment to Section 17, 18 and 19 of the Article Association regarding virtual general meetings, the participation of supervisory board members at general meetings. Supervisory Board and Board of Management believe that the company going forward should have the flexibility to make use of the new legal provisions, i.e. to have AGMs either as physical meetings, virtual or hybrid meetings. As explained earlier, the Board of Management, for each AGM, with due consideration and after talking things over with their shareholders, will weigh the pros and cons of the format of the AGM, always in the best interest of the company and the shareholders. The ultimate objective being an efficient and comprehensive communication with the shareholders. Also, as a matter of principle, it is to be made possible for Supervisory Board members, in agreement with the Chairman of the Supervisory Board, may participate by way of audio-visual communication instead of being on site physically at the venue of the AGM. The complete wording of the Article Association, which includes the amendments proposed in Item 7 and 8, is available on the company's website. Item 8 includes a resolution on approving the compensation report. The report is also available on the company's website. Item 9 is on a resolution on approving the Management Board's compensation system. The amendments to the remuneration system for the Board of Management of Uniper SE is necessary with a view to the agreement entered into between Uniper SE and the Federal Republic of Germany on the 19th of December 2022. This is about the framework agreement for stabilization measures. The new remuneration system is to take retroactive effect with effect from the 1st of January 2023 and remain in place for as long as the conditions in the context of the stabilization measures remain in place. There is no entitlement to the annual bonus, neither to the annual bonus nor to the LTI. Also, the remuneration system does not include a severance payment nor a special termination right in the event of a change of control. The non-competition compensation will be paid for 12 months in the amount of 1/12 of the annual salary. The maximum remuneration is limited at 2 million euros for the chairman of the Board of Management and for ordinary Board of Management members to 1.4 million euros. The proposed remuneration system is also accessible on the company's website. Ladies and gentlemen, we've now reached the end of the agenda, and we hereby close the public broadcast of this AGM. I'd like to thank all our viewers for your interest in our company. Our shareholders may, of course, continue to view the broadcasting of the AGM via the company's online service.